Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to proceed with the next panel, and we'll try to pick up a little bit of speed. May I ask the panelists for the opening session to come and sit left to right. We should have your names here in the order of presentations. John, I think you're in the first seat, right?
Is there a missing person?
Well, again, a very good morning to everybody coming. I'd like to welcome you to the opening panel. I'm John Kasarda. I direct the Center for Air Commerce at the University of North Carolina, and it really is a pleasure for me to interact with a truly distinguished and insightful panel, as you will see. Looking at the program, the topic is pretty straightforward. It says, can investment in aviation, aerospace, space, and defense industries act as a catalyst for industrialization? I think it would be really easy for us to simply say, yes, for sure. I mean, obviously, and proceed to the foyer for refreshments and networking. But there is more to this question. And I'd like to take, since we're running behind, just about 5 minutes to frame the issue for panel discussion. The key word in the panel title is catalyst. Catalyst for industrialization. This word actually has its roots in chemistry, where it is often defined as an input or component that enables other processes to be carried out more quickly and efficiently. Yet, as we certainly learned yesterday, as the sectors we are focusing on in this summit, that they go well beyond catalytic. They do far more than enable and facilitate. They drive industrialization. They are causative in advancing industrialization and broader economic development. The impact figures that were presented yesterday in terms of absolute investment, jobs, and proportions of GDP worldwide and in many nations were really striking, particularly here in the Middle East. While the sectors of aviation, aerospace, space, and defense have huge direct economic impacts and are instrumental in advancing industrialization, what we found yesterday is that they themselves have catalysts. These catalysts are skilled workers, innovative talent, supportive governments, strategic alliances and partnerships for collaboration, just to mention a few. And I might add to this list an understanding of what makes companies and places, cities, regions, nations, competitive in terms of cost, productivity, and market reach. One of my key takeaways from yesterday's sessions was that companies, in fact, are no longer the fundamental competitive units. Rather, it is networks, systems, supply chains, and extended enterprises that are indeed the real competitive units. It is less firm versus firm and more supply chain versus supply chain, network versus network, system versus system. As just one example, the cost, quality, productivity, and ultimate profitability of any aerospace assembly facility is determined as much by the cost, quality, and delivery of its suppliers and by the cost, quality, and delivery of its downstream distributors as by its internal operations. You are your network. You are as good as your supply chain. So the catalyst of industrialization and the economic impact of your own firm is shaped in large part by your position and role in a network. So too is the industrialization of places. Where are you positioned in the network? How do you optimize your position and maximize your role in the global manufacturing ecosystem? And for advancing industrialization, how do nations, cities, and regions optimize their positions in the new international division of labor, the network, which is shifting from west to east? Furthermore, what is the role of governments and regulatory policies as catalysts of industrial growth in your own firm's success? Now, my special interest is airports and the role that aviation plays as the physical internet, driving firm competitiveness and regional economic development. Airline routes are, in fact, the world's physical internet. These routes move people and products quickly and efficiently around the world, the same way the digital internet moves information and data. The routers of the physical internet are the airports. The airports are where the global interfaces with the local. And it is extremely important that if you want to optimize your competitive position in the world division of labor, you want to be a key node in the global physical internet that is actually moving people and products quickly and efficiently around the world. And where does Catalyst come into play here? Well, if I may editorialize just a bit in closing my statements, I listened to the way in which airports and airlines were presented yesterday, particularly here in the Middle East. But I noticed the same when I work in Asia, that there's a fundamental different philosophy. There's a fundamentally different view of governments, and I might say their citizens, of airports and aviation. When I talk to people in the Middle East and in Asia, government officials and business people, they tend to view aviation and airports as key infrastructure to compete in a globally networked, speed-driven economy. When I talk to my friends in Europe and the United States, they often view and their policies treat airports and aviation as nuisances or worse, environmental threats to be controlled. What is your philosophy? What is your government policy? That's a catalyst. That is the true catalyst. That unleashes whether or not your industrial process will move forward very quickly and efficiently. And for particular places, as you look at industrial advancement and industrial growth, it also determines aviation and airports whether they will have the three key ingredients for industrial success, which I found in my research are speed, agility, and connectivity. I found that the bottom line is that those firms, those places that can become the fastest, most agile, best connected places to do business in the 21st century will win. It's as simple as that. They will overcome all types of government incentives and promotional privileges and worker training and all the factors we know are also important. Speed, agility, connectivity. They're the three factors of competitive success. Now, I've always told my MBA students that strongly held positions, forcefully presented, stimulate thought and debate. We have just the right panel this morning to stimulate that thought and debate. So let me introduce each of the speakers. And I'll give each one approximately 5 minutes. Each one will have approximately 5 minutes to share their views on the panel topic. To my immediate left is Jean-Bernard Levy. He serves as chairman of the board and CEO, not of one corporation, but of a number of leading global corporations. He is currently chairman of Thales SA, where he has been chief executive officer since December 2012. Mr. Levy also serves as the chairman of the board of the Universal Music Group. No? Okay, I thought you were, sorry. I'm pumping you up too much. And as I hope this chairman and CEO of Vivendi Society, no, somebody sent me a resume that said that. Okay, did you hold the position of chairman and CEO of SFR?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I got one right. Okay. Now, tell me if I'm right here. You're an engineer by training.
That's right.
Okay. And you led numerous organizations and associations in the telecom field. It's amazing, even without those where he shook his head. It's an incredible biography that I was given. So, Jean-Bernard Levy. At the far end, I'm sorry we didn't get the names right, Dato, you came in just a little bit late on the panel, is Dato Hashim, the Executive Director of the Malaysian Investment Development Authority, MIDA. MIDA is the government's principal agency for the promotion of the manufacturing and services sector in Malaysia. Dato Hashim heads up the Manufacturing Development Division, which includes electronics and electrical equipment, machinery and advanced engineering, building technology, and transportation technology. His organization was hailed by the World Bank as, and I quote, the necessary impetus for purposeful, positive, and coordinated promotional action in Malaysia's industrial development. Muharrem Dortkasli is president and CEO of the Turkish aerospace industries. He has held this position since October 2005. Mr. Dortkasli is a member of the board of the Defense Industry Manufacturers Organization and also vice chairman of the Turkish-U.S. Business Council. He also heads the Defense Security Commission. Under Mr. Dortkasli's leadership, TAI has become a major center of technology in the design, development, manufacturing, and life cycle support of integrated aerospace systems. Ivor Ichikowitz, Ivor, just put up your hand here. Very good. Is the founder and group executive chairman of the Paramount Group South Africa, which is the largest private defense and aerospace group in Africa. This group is the technology leader which actually designed and developed Africa's first ever aircraft. Mr. Ichikowitz is also executive chairman of the private equity group Trans-Africa Capital, where he directs investments in scientific research and development projects for industry and commerce. Chris Boardman. Chris Boardman is the managing director of BAE Systems, Military, Air, and Information. Chris has spent virtually all of his life in defense. His career focus has been on forms of collaboration with industrialization at its heart. He has worked extensively in Europe, Saudi Arabia, India, as well as the United States. Chris is a firm believer in the right of each nation to defend itself, and perhaps more than that, it has a duty to use defense as a form of industrial growth. Matt Riddle. Matt is president of Raytheon International Incorporated, which is the marketing and sales arm of the U.S. $25 billion Raytheon company, with core manufacturing concentrations, as you all know, in weaponry and military and commercial electronics. The company employs 68,000 people globally and is the world's largest producer of guided missiles. Mr. Riddle joined Raytheon in August 2011 from BAE Systems, where he directed 10,000 employees in business operations, land and armament for U.S. combat systems. He is the holder of multiple patents for combat vehicle design. So let's go right to our panel and begin with Jean-Bernard Levy. Jean-Bernard, would you please give us a few of your thoughts on the topic?
Thank you, John. Thank you for this presentation. I must first say I'm very, very pleased to be here. I want to thank Mubadala especially for organizing this great summit, this great event, which for us at Thales obviously means a lot, and we see how successful it is. Of course, you have already touched briefly, but in a very precise way, what are the key challenges? What are the key objectives we may have when we think about our industrial footprint? And of course, when we look at the region over here, it is quite obvious. Growing over here is a key challenge for a company like Thales, and how we are going to invest in the region, and more generally in emerging markets is a key element of strategy. Why is that? Well, because obviously for a group like ours, we are a French-based company with our roots in France, obviously, but also very much in the United Kingdom, in the Netherlands, in Germany, and in Australia. Thanks to a number of acquisitions we made 10, 15 years ago, we have now achieved, I would say, quite an optimum footprint, an optimum organization, and a synergistic view of what we could gather, what we could put together at a time where economic growth in these countries I mentioned, in the Western world, as we say, was still significant. And obviously, over the last few years, we have seen such a shift in where GDP growth lies in the world that we have to re-engineer our industrial footprint as we look at emerging markets, and mainly Asia, and enlarged Asia, as where a majority, where more than 50% of the world's GDP growth is happening today and will obviously happen in the next few years. So there is somehow like a mismatch between where we are and where we want to be when we just want to grow, because we are not going to get a lot of growth from our Western markets, our Western economies. We are going to get a lot of growth from the East. And when a company like ours, and I joined about 15 months ago, still has more than 90% of its workforce in the Western world, in the Western countries, obviously this is something we need to think about. We need to reorganize, and it's one of the key challenges, and to rearrange, reassemble a set of industrial presence where we will get our growth from. Mind you, we've been over here, we've been in many of these emerging economies for many, many years, 40 years in the region, and already we have about 1,500 people. So it is a good start, but obviously it's not enough. 1,500 people are mostly employed in support function and services, maintenance, integration, and supporting sales and after sales. What is requested from us is a deep change in the way we view this footprint, and we have a challenge which we call internally changing our industrial footprint. And the word industrial is important. We need to change the nature of the activities we perform in the region. That means being present on all the value chain. That means being present in designing, engineering, manufacturing, on top of the existing support and services business we already have. Now that's not easy to do because, as you very rightly said, we need an ecosystem. And we're not going to do it just alone. And we also need to make sure we don't overlap and we don't create overly intense internal competition between our various industrial centers. So we need to work and we need to plan on what the ecosystem we'd like to build is going to be, and we need to do that with our local partners and with the local governments in these countries where the market is big enough to sustain such a new industrial footprint. And as I know time is short, I will just give you a few ideas of what we are trying to achieve. What we are trying to achieve is first some kind of specialization. If we have, let's say, 10 key emerging markets, 10 key emerging countries, we are not going to duplicate or tentplicate the same thing everywhere. We need to start specializing. Second idea is we need to organize a supply chain around us. We need to organize a way we are going to replicate in some way the organization which is efficient and makes us competitive in a way where we get the better value for the money we have, we get the better cost, we get the benefits of government support where needed for investment. So I would say the supply chain element is a second part. And the third, very important, maybe the most important aspect of what we need to do is about talents, is about the skills. We all know there is a shortage of high-level, talented people, not only in some of our home countries, but of course even more strongly over here. And we need to try and overcome this issue of shortage, and we need to be innovative in doing that. To be innovative means we can't just sit there and wait for these resources to be made available by the normal job market, because it's not going to happen, because we just can't wait and because it's a very competitive landscape. So we need to organize it. We need to organize it working upstream. We need to organize it with academies, and maybe we need ourselves to create and to train the people we will employ later, which means we need to work with the technology or scientific universities or academies or even high schools that we can find in order to prepare ourselves the resources we are going to need in our industry. We are already in these areas I mentioned being very active, changing the way we look at these needs from what I said before, just support and services towards industries, and investing in all these areas. It is our interest to invest short-term and long-term. We try to do that very closely with the local governments. We do it in all the major countries, and I would say all of them are interested, not all to the same level, but all of them are interested. We need to work with the governments to create these conditions for the right future industrial footprint that we need in a global company like Thales. So with this, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. In my list of 7, I had an oversight, and actually Miss Doug in the introduction, sitting next to Mr. Levy, as Douglas Rayberg, and he's one of our most distinguished panelists. He was appointed as Northrop Grumman's chief executive for the UAE in October 2013. In this role, Mr. Rayberg is responsible for leading the company's programs in the UAE, including identifying new business opportunities and overall strategies for growth. Prior to his current role, he was director of the Global Battle Management Command and Control Campaign Lead for Northrop Grumman Aerospace Systems. Mr. Rayberg joined Northrop Grumman in 2010 following a distinguished military career where he retired at the rank of Major General. An accomplished bomber pilot and trainer, he was responsible for all combined air and space operations of the U.S. military in the Middle East and Asia, for which he received numerous awards and decorations. So Doug, it's wonderful to have you on this panel and to contribute. Let me go right to a few questions, and perhaps I kind of enhanced your resume a little bit, Mr. Levy, but even the basics in there make you
just to make everybody comfortable. I did have these responsibilities, which
were you on the board of Society Generale?
The summer of 12.
Did you receive the Legion Merit Award? Yeah. It's so long. But anyway, so I want to throw you what we say in America is a softball. Something you hit out of the park. And it's a general question, just get the panel started. In your role as CEO and board chairman of these organizations, what have you learned are the key ingredients, kind of the secret sauce for growing a great company or great corporation? You pick 2 or 3 things. So you've gone across various sectors. What would you say makes a great company?
Well, that's a broad question.
Yes.
Maybe going beyond exactly what we our key topic here. I would say, in my view, making the talents work in the right team spirit is certainly the right ingredient. In a nutshell, I would say getting the right allocation of capital towards your priorities is obviously a key element. And I would say the third one is obviously getting good consensus, approval, and motivation from your shareholders is something you absolutely need.
Okay,
So
well,
just
thank you.
Quick answer.
Let me drill
No
down
home
then.
run there, huh?
Okay, it's good. Good answer. Let's take your point that was not the theme of the conference, and I'll go right to Mr. Dortkasli and ask him, what factors were most important in the growth of the aerospace industry in Turkey?
Thank you. Thank you. I've been here 2 years ago, and I told the story of Turkish aerospace industry, where we were, how we established the plans, how we are progressing, where we are, and what we are going to do. And meanwhile, what was the main drivers, how we utilize the international partnership, how we utilize the leverage of the growth of the Turkish economy, and it is the offsetting mechanism, the local content type of things. So today, perhaps I put some additional things to the top of that to have a better understanding the importance of that industry for the Turkish economy. When we have the growth, the growth slope or the inclination has started, we also decided to establish our own outsourcing community. It was a difficult, challenging period for us. It was not easy, but by today we have achieved to offload almost 60% of the workload we do in the past, from the details perspective to the low added value perspective, to our outsourcing community. So the last year we have outsourced 2 million hours of work to our local community, and we decided to keep only the system engineering, the configuration management, the final assembly, test, and the program management activities in-house. So first I am supposed to mention about the transition of TAI to become an OEM, starting the story as a subcontractor. So we decided to keep the disciplines or the activities which will make us an OEM. For the rest of the activities, all outsourced. And we end up with a figure by the end of 2012 in Turkey, which is quite charming, which is quite interesting, and it has drawn the attention of the government also. So we are expecting similar application of the similar policies for other industries in Turkey, since Turkey investing a lot for the energy demand, for the infrastructure, for the transportation, for the pharmacology, for the education type of things. So what we have done in the defense and aerospace might be a good sample for the other industries in Turkey. The figures is quite charming. The average value of per kilogram value of export of Turkey, $1.50 per kilogram, which is by the end of 2012, those are the values taken from the WTA. That value is for $3.50 for Japan, for $4.1 per Germany. That value in Ankara, which is the main companies established, which is the capital of Turkey, but not the biggest and highly industrial city, which is Istanbul. The Ankara is specifically all the defense, aviation, aerospace industries companies, the SMEs, technocities, they are all established mainly in Ankara intensively. The value of the export of Ankara is $25 per kilogram. Okay. So when we look to the value of the Turkey and the value of the Ankara for the export kilogram value, so it's 15 times, 16 times is higher. When we look to the export value of our own shipments, so we end up something like $500 to $1,000 for our aerostructure activities, which differs from metallic to composite, labor intensive to composite intensive. And for the systems, of course, we do not sell the systems by kilogram, but if you make a comparison like to UAV, which is our the main class UAV Ankara, so you end up with something $5,000. If you go to attack helicopter, which belongs to us together with the Gustav Estland, it goes something $10,000. If you talk with the satellite, it goes to $200,000 or something like that. So what I am saying this time, last time we tried to explain how we try to establish the industry in Turkey. This time what I am saying, that industry is a high value added industry. So by means of establishing or getting such an industry, you are using the dynamics of all the parts of the society, including the universities, all the institutes, SMEs, the partners, and then you are having high value products, you are giving value of the export of, or the GDP of your country. So it is quite achievable, but of course there are many ways to go. And I am getting information from UAE, Mubadala, and the other local friends here. They have also the serious intention to establish their own industry, and there are very good signals of that. So we might be a good example for our friends in UAE, since we are freshly experienced
Thank you.
that issue, and we are still experiencing. So as a opening,
Thank you.
I want to state all those. Thank you very much.
Very good. When I was talking to Chris Boardman before the session, I copied down that note where he says, nations and firms have a duty to use defense as a form of industrial growth. I thought that was a very strong statement. Chris, can you provide us with perhaps some of your personal historical views as to why you believe that?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. First of all, just for the record, I would say that the answer to the question is yes, for sure, let's go for a coffee. But I thought what I'd do in the time that I've got allotted, I would give you my personal views and put that in a historic perspective. So my country of birth, as you can probably tell from my accent, is the United Kingdom. And just over 200 years ago, some people say but certainly a major industrial revolution began. And that industrial revolution, despite some of the social and economic problems that came with it, has been for the benefit of humanity and mankind. If you look at one of the drivers to that industrial revolution, one of the key drivers was defense. So the most complex things built by man pre-industrial revolution were warships. And what the industrial revolution did was advance that defense capability. Because there was the drive, the industrial revolution then moved into many sectors and forced improvements in capability and benefit in those economic sectors. So the drive in the industrial revolution came from defense. So I come back to my beliefs that every nation has a right to defend itself, and every nation and the nation's leaders have a duty to drive industrialization from that basic defense need. So giving you some personal examples that come from my career, and I'll cover three. I'll give you an example in Europe around the Eurofighter Typhoon program and Spain. I'll give you an example in this region in Saudi Arabia, and probably finish on an example in India, all based on my personal experiences. So if we take the Spanish involvement in the Eurofighter Typhoon program, a strategic need of the Spanish government and a planned drive to get benefit from that. So before the Eurofighter Typhoon program, there was a previous generation of aircraft called the Tornado, and that had an Italian, German, and UK involvement. Nations who had industrialized around defense and other things. The Spanish then joined the Eurofighter Typhoon program with a very clear goal to satisfy their defense need and also to drive their industry. And that's what they did very successfully in both engineering, in both design, manufacture, and support. Very, very. What that did for me and my observation is that allowed Spain then to become a much bigger player in commercial aerospace. And if you look in the Airbus group now, if you look at where Airbus military is effectively housed, its home is in Spain. And you can see that through the A400M transport program. So that's a great example of a defense need driving an industrial solution while satisfying that defense need. If I then go to Saudi Arabia, my company's been supporting and helping to put in what I regard as a world-class defense infrastructure in Saudi Arabia with the British government for many years. We, as a company, have made some very significant strategic moves. We have 6,000 employees in Saudi Arabia, and over 65% of those employees are Saudi nationals. The Saudi engineers, there are Saudi technicians, there are people in manufacturing, there are people in administration and finance. So that is a purposeful move to actually put an industrial base and try and make that commitment part not just of a Saudi Arabian supply chain, but of a global supply chain. And do more than that by actually working with and taking investments in Saudi companies that do more than the original investment decision that we made in them, do more than defence, do more into the commercial applications side of life. So for me, another example where defence is a need, it's a right, and the receiving government has actually driven that to improve its industrialisation. So the last example I would leave you with is India, and then when you look into India, the two things that you see on industrialisation, heavy industrialisation in defence and heavy industrialisation in space. I'll focus on the defence side and probably the small contribution that we've made, again over a number of decades, where we worked very closely through the Jaguar aircraft programme and more latterly on the Hawk training aircraft programme to industrialise. So we've sold those aircraft into India, and then what we've actually done is that we've put license build manufacture, we've passed know-how and transfer capability, and that has then developed into relationships around modifying those products, redesigning those products, and also supporting them in service. That has been going on for 4 decades. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is a very capable entity. It covers a number of programs from providers around the world and has been credited by its own government as very successful. So I just give you those as tasters in this session to say my fundamental belief, I'll repeat my belief again, is nations have a right to defend them, but the leadership has a duty to drive their industrialisation. And my examples are to drive hope and belief that that can be repeated many times around the world. Thank you.
Let me take what you said and try to boil it down into 2 succinct questions. And if you could, Chris, give us 2 succinct answers. The first is, to listen to you, what do you see as the key criteria for successful transition from defense to industrial growth? And related to that, having countries establish a certain level of industrialization from the defense niche, how do you sustain that? Could you give us some quick thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think the first thing you have to do, the company or the nation that's providing the product or service has to believe in the strategy of the nation it's trying to sell or work with. So if there's an industrial plan, a strategic plan, it has to believe in it. It's more than actually wanting to transact business. You have to believe that that's the right thing to do. I think you then have to be willing and believe that you want to transfer know-how, because it's easy to promise it, it's very difficult to do it. So I think you have to do that. I think the receiving nation then has to give a basis for that transfer. It has to keep giving and replenishing business if a transfer or a joint entity is going to be successful. And therefore you have to take a long-term view, and you have to be good and willing to collaborate. And collaboration is all about everybody winning. It's not about one side taking advantage from another. So I think they're the key success criteria. And if you're saying, well, how do you sustain it? Well, the initial industrialization is driven on the back of a defense transaction, but I think the entities that are created have to have joint purpose. They have to have more relevance than the nation that they are established in. So the joint entities that are created must have a focus on a regional or global basis of being part of a supply chain or actually being able to provide products and services. And I think key within that is looking for dual use technologies. And I think the simplest example I can give is if you can assemble an aircraft, you can maintain an aircraft. So if you approach the market in that way, if you approach the transaction and the relationship in that way, you'll get maximum benefit, maximum use.
Thanks, Chris. Let me go to Ivor Ichikowitz, who actually gave me a very, very nice statement on the importance of aerospace and defense industries in Africa. It was a very nice statement. I'm going to try to, in the interest of time, cut through that and say, basically, he talked about this rich potential. And when many people think of Africa, I know when I raise Africa as a possibility, they raise some real challenges with me to operating in Africa. Things such as illegal arms shipments, drug smuggling, human trafficking, illegal poaching and fishing. It goes on of the headaches. How can yours or similar companies in aerospace and defense help combat these problems and thereby contribute to the industrialization, overall prosperity of Africa?
It never ceases to amaze me how every discussion on Africa always starts with the problems. This happens to be a universal truth, and I'm faced with it in every forum I ever come to. But I think what most people don't realize is that sitting on the southern tip of Africa, and you can hear by my accent that I'm from the southern tip of Africa, we have some of the most remarkable aerospace and defense industrial capability in the world. Now, an important theme of this forum has been how emerging economies can participate in the global aerospace and defense environment. And there's a myth out there that if you're not from the United States or you're not from Europe, you can't be a player in this game. And we at Paramount and we in South Africa are living proof that that is absolutely not the case. Now, the aerospace and defense industry in South Africa was born out of the atrocities of apartheid. The South African government was in a position where they were not able to access technology, they were not able to access or purchase equipment, so they had to develop their own. And through that necessity came the establishment of an infrastructure, universities that could train technicians, testing facilities that could test equipment, research and development facilities that would never otherwise have been possible. And as a result, we have in South Africa our own technology, our own capability that we are now sharing with the rest of the world. Now, to answer your question, we believe, as we've just heard, that every country and every economy has the right to defend itself. And we also believe that every emerging economy has the right to have its own defense and aerospace capability. And one of Paramount's stated missions, and one of the stated missions of the South African defense and aerospace industry, is to share our technology. And one of the things that gets me up every day and gets me excited is that we are helping other countries in Africa, other countries in the developing world, to create industries that are going to become the catalysts for other industries. If you look at the South African example, today we are a world leader in the automotive industry, we're a world leader in the aerospace industry, we're a world leader in the mining industry. And all of these capabilities at some point were as a result of the investment that government had to make in the development of the defense industry. So in conclusion, on this point, I think that the role we are playing today in terms of allowing African governments to have access to African technology so that they can protect their fragile democracies. Democracy in Africa is difficult to achieve, and if governments don't have the ability to protect these democracies, they will fail. And that's what we're doing every day.
Thank you. Could you give us a quick response, because I know you were involved in the design and development of some of the very early aircraft that Africa produced. What new developments are taking place in Africa's aerospace sector in general that you feel will be the largest drivers of industrialization on the continent? Do you have a fairly quick response?
South Africa for a long time assembled aircraft and has been a producer of components for aircraft. And a couple of years ago we decided that it was time to develop an African homegrown developed fighter aircraft. A very ambitious project, a project that met with a lot of opposition, because why in heaven's name would Africa want to do this when we could buy these things from the West? And the truth is that we were busy producing parts for Western aircraft. Why shouldn't we be developing our own? And we started a program to develop a very, very exciting aircraft called ARLAC, which is an advanced high-performance reconnaissance aircraft. It was an aircraft that was developed from operational need, not because we could from a purely technical point of view. Arlac has been a 4-year development. It's a 100% South African homegrown aircraft. It's a fighter, it's a reconnaissance aircraft, it's a pipeline patrol aircraft, it's a whatever the customer needs it to be aircraft. And I'm very excited to say that we've just done engine runs, and hopefully we're going to fly this thing in the next couple of months. And what really is exciting is nobody in the world believed that we could do this. And not only have we done it, but I think that we've created a game changer for the aerospace industry. Another project that's been very exciting for us is that we are design partners with Airbus on the A400M. We've also today one of Airbus's largest component manufacturers outside of Europe and the United States. And we continue to grow this capability, not just as a make-to-print partner, but as a design partner, not only of components, but also of the industrialization technologies that allow us to make these components cost effectively.
Thank you. I'd like to shift to the end to Dato Hashim, and I know that who's the Executive Director of the Malaysian Investment Development Authority. Dato Hashim, yesterday we had an entire session on the aerospace industry requirements in terms of the multiple skills and needs that was mentioned time and time again. I have two related questions for you. What are the initiatives that are being introduced in Malaysia to support various talent requirements needed by investors? And related to that, what specific institutions in Malaysia are really there to address talent development in the aerospace industry? Could you answer both those questions?
Thank you, John. Well, to be honest with you, if I want to share with you, we are up here, we can't hear a word. Well, not very clear. So I couldn't get the message very clear, but let me, for the benefit of all of us here, let me try to scream a bit here. I'll come to that question later, John. Just to share with you, last night I went out to kill my time. I went out and hit ball on the driving range near our hotel. My passion, golf. Yeah, I asked for 50 balls to hit and kill my time. They said that you gotta pay 40 dirham. So, look, 40 dirham for 50 balls. In Malaysia, I only pay $1 for 50 balls. But anyway, I hit about 400 balls last night before decided what should I talk tomorrow morning. I've decided to write something. If you allowed me to read, it won't take long.
Okay.
I promise.
As long as it doesn't take long. Sure.
I'm the only government agency here on the panel, so the perspective, my perspective probably is slightly different. You know, government promotion agency. We are jack of all trade, but master of none. So, and I have some figure here that I want to mention, and I don't remember figure very well, except that my wife's birthday. But
go to it.
That's how we keep our marriage intact. Yeah. Well, Malaysia has been in the aerospace industry for quite a while. The intention to create an aerospace industry was conceived with the launching of the National Aerospace Blueprint in 1997, followed by the establishment of the National Aerospace Council, chaired by our Prime Minister himself. To drive the growth of the aerospace industry in Malaysia, 4 sectors of the industry were given greater focus. Number 1, part and component manufacturing, of course aerospace, MRO, avionics and system integration, and aerospace human capital development. Yeah. A significant number of large multinational companies have invested in Malaysia, to name a few, Honeywell, GE, AAR, CAE, and Hamilton Sundstrand. And from Europe, well-known names that I can name that have chosen to invest in Malaysia: Airbus, Agusta Westland, Spirit Aerosystem, Airfoil Services, Aerocopter, Strand Aerospace, Messier Bugatti, Altron, Raaberg, and a few others. Yeah. Well, among a few major domestic players in the country, in Malaysia, aerospace engineering, AEROD, sounds familiar to you, SPANC, aviation, SME aerospace, CTRM, UPECA, which just bought over by senior UK 2 weeks ago. As mentioned a few times yesterday, airline companies worldwide have placed order more than 35,000 new airplanes to be delivered from next year to year 2032. A big number of aircraft will be delivered to the Middle East, and huge number of aircraft will be delivered to Asia Pacific region. If in the Middle East, particularly UAE, would offer tremendous opportunities in the aerospace and aerospace related activities, Asia Pacific is also offering vast opportunities in the aerospace and aerospace related activities. Malaysia is strategically located in the heart of Southeast Asia, in between India and China, the two emerging powerhouses in Asia. If the Middle East orders focus on long-haul aircraft, Southeast Asia, in particular Malaysia, will have a huge fleet of short and medium-haul airplanes. Let me mention some statistics about the Asian aviation market. MRO market forecast air travel in Asia to grow 6.7% per year over the next 20 years, while world air traffic grow at 5% per annum. Short-haul flying, including domestic and inter-regional travel in Asia, will grow at 7% per annum. 1/2 of world new traffic added during the next 20 years will be to, from, or within Asia. Global MRO market will grow at 4% in the next 10 years, while Asia Pacific MRO is projected to grow at almost 6% in the next 10 years and will be the largest MRO region by value by 2022. Malaysia has performed extremely well in the electronic and semiconductor industry. Malaysia has managed to attract a few well-known players in solar integrated investment project and has successfully developed solar ecosystem. The aerospace industry has been identified by the Malaysian government as the strategic industry which will take the country's industrialization and technological development to different heights in the future. With that statement, I can say for certain for Malaysia's case, investment in the aerospace sector would certainly act as an important catalyst for the country's future industrializations. In addition to strategic located in the heart of the region, the political and economic stability, liberal investment policies, well-developed infrastructure, trainable and educated human resource, that is number one strength for Malaysia. If I could answer to your question, John. We in MIDA, and if you can talk to many industry players that have established their base and decided to do something, to invest in the country, they will give the comment that they have no doubt that Malaysia will be the next aerospace hub in Asia Pacific region.
Well, thank you. I know I visited the Sepang Airport, which is the airport that was replaced by the new KLIA, and it's just amazing what's going on there with Eurocopter and Spirit Aerosystems. It's a real cluster of aerospace, and you're to be congratulated. I really want to give Matt Riddle and Doug Rayberg a chance to express their views and answer some specific questions. Matt, what are your thoughts on the whole process of your sector as a catalyst of industrialization, and just some of your general views on what you've heard at the conference today, the summit today?
Well, I appreciate you having me up here. Very distinguished group. It's interesting to see talking about technology and how that's a catalyst for driving it. And years ago, that technology was warships, and now it's aerospace and defense. As I travel around the world, you see that. You see the increasing competition, quite frankly, in emerging markets where customer countries want to not just do normal metal bending or mundane manufacturing, but want to do co-development, higher technology type traits. So as Raytheon company, as we go around the world, and the Middle East is our most important market, we take that to heart. We have a couple of really good examples here where we've done some very good collaboration, and we're encouraged by further growth.
Thank you very much. If I could put you a little bit on the spot, what market do you believe holds the greatest potential for growth at Raytheon International?
As I stated, clearly the Middle East market. We've been here for over 50 years. We've never left, nor do we plan on. We will be a partner for the next 50 years. UAE, Mubadala, Tawazun, EAI, all good partners and friends of the Raytheon company. We intend on extending that partnership.
Thank you. Well, continuing that line, Doug Rayberg, who is really the CEO for the UAE for Northrop Grumman. Doug, do you have any comments or perspectives you could put on from basically your personal experience or Northrop Grumman's goals in the UAE regarding the catalyst for industrialization, or anything else that's relevant to the topic?
Yeah, thank you, John. First of all, as a stealth pilot, I learned early in life is don't highlight yourself. So you notice that the next thing you learn as a stealth pilot is don't scream in your mask, because people are not going to hear you anyway. We've got limited time, so let me synthesize Northrop Grumman. It was very exciting this morning to have Buzz Aldrin speak, because being a member of a company of 75,000 employees, our legacy is the lunar module. And that's where I want to start, and that's on the basis of the important part of industrialization is really looking at your commitment. And our commitment starts with us being right here in the United Arab Emirates, and particularly here in Abu Dhabi. As the introduction said, I'm here to stay, our company is here to stay, because we really truly believe in our commitment as a corporation. But it's also a commitment to the youth, to the young ones, because in the end, we know that the young ones are going to grow and develop to be the leaders of Mubadala, Tawazun, AEI, and other corporations within the UAE, not just here in the United Arab Emirates, but globally. And we see that growth and that opportunity. So we have to take it one step at a time, and we really, truly will invest in the youth as well as in the industry here in the UAE. I invite you in a couple weeks to just join us for Innovation Challenge. Watch how we take young university students, at least 100 of them. They're going to compete in unmanned aerial system competition. All I can say is on the 21st and 22nd of this month, look out. If you're at the cricket stadium, I guarantee you there will be an unmanned object flying by you in a competition. Just remember, there's some young Emirati behind that, a young team, guys and gals, who are going to really make the difference. Commitment. Capability is really the next key part of industrialization that we recognize as Northrop Grumman. In our past and our legacy, integrated air missile defense, we are the eyes of the early warning system here in the UAE. We developed it, as well as the brains of the Command and Control Center of the EADGE Air Operations Center, as well as the F-16 in terms of its radar and its electronic warfare capability. So we're looking beyond that in terms of capability, and now looking at what can we deliver our customer and what do they need. Airborne early warning is very important to this country. And as one who has developed the E-2D, the Advanced Hawkeye is the next generation. This is an aircraft that we have been committed to globally for over 50 years, and yet after a $2 billion investment, we have upgraded it to a capability that's far beyond its original intent. Like the lunar module, we see the future. So John, I'd say from a capability level, from unmanned systems, cybersecurity, you're looking at logistics and C4ISR, we want to commit our capability and our growth with the industry here locally. And finally, I think the most important part of industrialization, frankly, is trust. We need to develop a trust with our partners, with those that we work with, trust with our Emirati friends, our business partners, but also trust with our industry partners that are represented here on this panel today. That too is very important to us and to our company.
Well,
Thanks
thank
for
you
the
very
opportunity.
much, Doug. We got started 50 minutes late, but we do have a schedule to stick to, so I think we should terminate this panel. I understand Nick will be having a break, and I'll have you note that. But can we give a round of applause to a very, very distinguished panel? All but Sean Bernard, who had to go to a meeting at 11:30, said they would be around. So while we didn't have a chance to get questions from the audience, the panelists will be here to answer your questions individually. Thank you for your attention, and let me again thank the panel. Thank you.